Hey everybody, welcome from frigid Omaha, Nebraska. Just going to kick off my talk here and we'll see how it all goes. Thanks for attending. So the slides will be available on my site, grothe.us, in the presentation section tonight or tomorrow. This is a quick intro to one way to do private AI in Emacs. There are a lot of other ways to do it. This one is really just more or less the easiest way to do it. It's a minimal viable product to get you an idea of how to get started with it and how to give it a spin. Really hope some of you give it a shot and learn something along the way. So the overview of the talk, it's broken down to these basic bullet points. Why private AI? What do I need to do private AI? Emacs and private AI, pieces for an AI Emacs solution, a demo of a minimal viable product, and the summary. Why private AI? This is pretty simple. Just read the terms and conditions for any AI system you're currently using. If you're using the free tiers, your queries, code uploaded, information is being used to train the models. In some cases, you're giving the company a perpetual license to your data. You have no control over this except for not using the engine. And keep in mind, the terms are changing all the time on that, and they're not normally changing for our benefit. So that's not necessarily a good thing. If you're using the paid tiers, you may be able to opt out of the data collection, but keep in mind this can change, or they may start charging for that option. Every AI company wants more and more data. They need more and more data to train their models. It is just the way it is. They need more and more information to get it more and more accurate, to keep it up to date. There's been a story about Stack Overflow that has like half the number of queries they had a year ago because people are using AI. The problem with that is now there's less data going to Stack Overflow for the AI to get. So it's a vicious cycle, especially when you start looking at newer languages like Ruby and stuff like that. So it comes down to being an interesting time. Another reason why to go private AI is your costs are going to vary. Right now, these services are being heavily subsidized. If you're paying Claude $20 a month, it is not costing Claude, those guys $20 a month to host all the infrastructure, to build all these data centers. They are severely subsidizing that at a very much a loss right now. When they start charging the real costs plus a profit, it's going to change. Right now, I use a bunch of different services. I've played with Grothe and a bunch of other ones, but Grothe right now is like $30 a month for regular super Grothe. When they start charging the real cost of that, it's going to go from $30 to something a great deal more. Perhaps think $100 or $200 or whatever it really turns out to be the cost when you figure everything into it. When you start adding that cost into that, a lot of people are using public AI right now are going to have no option but to move to private AI or give up on AI overall. What do you need to be able to do private AI? If you're going to run your own AI, you're going to need a system with either some cores, a graphics processor unit, or a neural processing unit, a GPU or an NPU. I currently have 4 systems I'm experimenting with and playing around with on a daily basis. I have a System 76 Pangolin, AMD Ryzen 7 7840U with a Radeon 7080M integrated graphics card. It's got 32 gigs of RAM. It's a beautiful piece of hardware. I really do like it. I have my main workstation, which is an HP Z620 with dual Intel Xeons with 4 NVIDIA K2200 graphics cards in it. Why the 4 NVIDIA K2200 graphics card on it? Because I could buy 4 of them on eBay for $100, and it was still supported by the NVIDIA drivers for Debian. So that's why that is. A MacBook Air with an M1 processor, a very nice piece of kit I picked up a couple years ago, very cheap, but it runs AI surprisingly well. And an Acer Aspire 1 with an AMD Ryzen 5700H in it. This was my old laptop. It was a sturdy beast. It was able to do enough AI to do demos and stuff, and I liked it quite a bit for that. I'm using the Pangolin for this demonstration because it's just better. Apple's M4 chip has 38 teraflops of NPU performance. The Microsoft Copilots are now requiring 45 teraflops of NPU to be able to have the Copilot badge on it. And Raspberry Pi's new AI top is about 18 teraflops and is $70 on top of the cost of Raspberry Pi 5. Keep in mind, Raspberry Pi Raspberry recently raised the cost of their Pi 5s because of RAM pricing. which is going to be affecting a lot of these types of solutions in the near future. But there's going to be a lot of local power available in the future. That's what it really comes down to. A lot of people are going to have PCs on their desk. They're going to be able to run a decent private AI without much issue. So for Emacs and private AI, there's a couple popular solutions. GPTel, which is the one we're going to talk about. It's a simple interface. It's a minimal interface. It integrates easily into your workflow. It's just, quite honestly, chef's kiss, just a beautifully well done piece of software. Ollama Buddy has more features, a menu interface, has quick access for things like code refactoring, text reformatting, etc. This is the one that you spend a little more time with, but you also get a little bit more back from it. Llama is another one, has some really good features to it, different capabilities, but it's a different set of rules and capabilities to it. Itermac, which is paragramming with your AI in Emacs. The closest thing I can come up to comparing this to is Cursor, except it's in Emacs. It's really quite well done. These are all really quite well done. There's a bunch of other projects out there. If you go out to GitHub, type Emacs AI, you'll find a lot of different options. So what is a minimal viable product that can be done? A minimal viable product to show what an AI Emacs solution is can be done with only needing two pieces of software. Llama file. This is an amazing piece of software. This is a whole LLM contained in one file, and the same file runs on Mac OS X, Linux, Windows, and the BSDs. It's a wonderful piece of kit based on these people who created this thing called Cosmopolitan that lets you create an executable that runs on a bunch of different systems. And GPTel, which is an easy plugin for Emacs, which we talked about in the last slide of it. So setting up the LLM, you have to just go out and just hit the page for it and go out and do a wget of it. That's all it takes there. Chmodding it so you can actually execute the executable, and then just go ahead and actually running it. And let's go ahead and do that. I've already downloaded it because I don't want to wait. And let's just take a look at it. I've actually downloaded several of them, but let's go ahead and just run Llama 3.2b with the 3 billion instructions. And that's it firing up. And it is nice enough to actually be listening on port 8080, which we'll need in a minute. So once you do that, you have to install GPTel into Emacs. That's as simple as firing up Emacs, doing the meta-x install package, and then just typing GPTel if you have your repository set up right, which hopefully you do. And then you just go ahead and have it. You also have to set up a config file. Here's my example config file as it currently set up, requiring ensuring GPTel is loaded, defining the Llama file backend. You can put multiple backends into it, but I just have the one defined on this example. But it's pretty straightforward. Llama local file, name for it, stream, protocol HTTP. If you have HTTPS set up, that's obviously preferable, but a lot of people don't for their home labs. Host is just 127.0.0.1, port 8080. Keep in mind, some of the AIs run on a different port, so you may be 8081 if you're running OpenWebUI at the same time. The key, we don't need an API key because it's a local server. And the models, just we can put multiple models on there if we want to. So if we create one with additional stuff or like RAG and stuff like that, we can actually name those models by their domain, which is really kind of cool. But that's all that takes. So let's go ahead and go to a quick test of it. And oops, Alt-X, GPTel. And we're going to just choose the default buffer to make things easier. Going to resize it up a bit. And usually the go-to question I go to is, who was David Bowie? This one is actually a question that's turned out to be really good for figuring out whether or not AI is complete. This is one that some engines do well on, other ones don't. And we can either do the Alt-X and send the GPTel send, or we can just do Control-C and hit enter. We'll just do Control-C and enter. And now it's going ahead and hitting our local AI system running on port 8080. And that looks pretty good. But let's go ahead and say, hey, it's set to terse mode right now. Please expand upon this. And there we go. We're getting a full description of the majority of about David Bowie's life and other information about him. So very, very happy with that. One thing to keep in mind is you look at things when you're looking for hallucinations, how accurate AI is, how it's compressed, is it will tend to screw up on things like how many children he had and stuff like that. Let me see if it gets to that real quick. Did not actually go into that in this one. All right, so that's the first question I always ask one. The next one is, what are sea monkeys? It gives you an idea of the breadth of the system. It's querying right now. Pulls it back correctly. And it's smart enough to actually detect David Bowie even referenced sea monkeys in his song Sea of Love, which became a hit single. So it's actually keeping the context alive, and that, which is a very cool feature. I did not see that coming. Here's one that some people say is a really good one to ask. R's in strawberry. All right, now she's going off the reservation. She's going in a different direction. Let me go ahead and reopen that again because I went down a bad hole there for a second. Let me ask it to do, right, hello world in Emacs Lisp. Yep, that works. So the point being here, that was like 2 minutes of setup, and now we have a small AI embedded inside the system. So that gives you an idea just how easy it can be, and it's just running locally on the system. We also have the default system here as well, so not that bad. So that's a basic solution. That's a basic setup that will get you to the point where you can go like, it's a party trick, but it's a very cool party trick. And the way the GPTel works is it puts it into buffers. It doesn't interfere with your flow that much. It's just an additional window you can pop open to ask questions and get information for, dump code into it and have it refactored. GPTel has a lot of additional options for things that are really kind of cool for that. But if you want a better solution, I recommend Ollama or LM Studio. They're both more capable in Llama file. They can accept a lot of different models. You can do things like RAG. You can do loading of things onto the GPU more explicitly. It can speed stuff up. One of the things about the retrieval augmentation is it will let you put your data into the system so you can start uploading your code, your information, and actually being able to do analysis of it. OpenWebUI provides more capabilities. It provides an interface that's similar to what you're used to seeing for ChatGPT and the other systems. It's really quite well done. And once again, GPTel, I have to mention that because that's the one I really kind of like. And Ollama Buddy's also another really nice one. So what about the licensing of these models? Since I'm going out, pulling down a model and doing this stuff for, let's take a look at a couple of highlights from the MetaLlama 3 community license. Scale, if your service exceeds 700 million monthly users, you need additional licensing. Probably not going to be a problem for most of us. There's a competition restriction. You can't use this model to enhance competing models. And there's some limitations on using the meta trademarks. Not that big a deal. And the other ones are, it's a permissive one. It's designed to encourage innovation, open development. Commercial use is allowed, but there are some restrictions on it. Yeah, you can modify the model, but you have to rely on the license terms. And you can distribute the model with derivatives. And there are some very cool ones out there. There's people who've done things to try and make the Llama be less, what's the phrase, ethical if you're doing penetration testing research and stuff like that. It has some very nice value there. Keep in mind the license is also vary depending upon the model you're using. Mistral AI has the non-production license. It's designed to keep it to research and development. You can't use it commercially. So it's designed for it's designed to clearly delineate between research and development and somebody trying to actually build something on top of it. And another question I get asked is, are there open source data model options? Yeah, but most of them are small or specialized currently. Molmo is a whole family of them, but they tend to be more specialized, but it's very cool to see where it's going. And it's another thing that's just going forward. It's under the MIT license. Some things to know to help you have a better experience with this. Get OLAMA and OpenWebUI working by themselves, then set up your config file. I was fighting both at the same time, and it turned out I had a problem with my OLAMA. I had a conflict, so that was what my problem is. Llama file, GPTal is a great way to start experimenting just to get you an idea how it works and figure out how the interfaces work. Tremendous. RAG, loading documents into it, is really easy with OpenWebUI. You can create models. You can put things like help desk developers and stuff like that, breaking it out. The Hacker News has a how to build a $300 AI computer. This is from March 2024, but it still has a lot of great information on how to benchmark the environments, what some values are, like the Ryzen 5700U inside my Acer Aspire. That's where I got the idea of doing that, how to make sure you do the ROC-M stuff correctly to get the GUI extensions. So, but it's just really good stuff. You don't need a great GPU or CPU to get started. Smaller models like Tiny Llama can run on very small systems. So it gets you the ability to start playing with it and start experimenting and figure out if that's for you and to move forward with it. The AMD Ryzen AI Max 395 Plus is in a mini PC, makes a really nice dedicated AI host. You used to be able to buy these for about $1,200. Now with the RAM price increase, you want to get 128 gig when you're pushing $2,000. So it gets a little tighter. Macs work remarkably well with the AI. My MacBook Air was one of my go-tos for a while, but once I started doing anything AI, I had a 5-minute window before the thermal throttling became an issue. Keep in mind that's a MacBook Air, so it doesn't have the greatest ventilation. If you get the MacBook Pros and stuff, they tend to have more ventilation, but still you're going to be pushing against that. So Mac Minis and the Mac Ultras and stuff like that tend to work really well for that. Alex Ziskin on YouTube has a channel. He does a lot of AI performance benchmarking, like I load a 70 billion parameter model on this mini PC and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun and interesting stuff there. And it's influencing my decision to buy my next AI style PC. Small domain specific LLMs are happening. An LLM that has all your code and information, it sounds like a really cool idea. It gives you capabilities to start training stuff that you couldn't do with like the big ones. Even with in terms of fine tuning and stuff, it's remarkable to see where that space is coming along in the next year or so. Hugging Face Co. has pointers to tons of AI models. You'll find the one that works for you, hopefully there. If you're doing cybersecurity, there's a whole bunch out there for that have certain training on it, information. It's really good. One last thing to keep in mind is hallucinations are real. You will get BS back from the AI occasionally, so do validate everything you get from it. Don't be using it for court cases like some people have and run into those problems. So that is my talk. What I would like you to get out of that is if you haven't tried it, give GPTel and Llama File a shot. Fire up a little small AI instance inside play around with a little bit inside your Emacs and see if it makes your life better. Hopefully it will. And I really hope you guys learned something from this talk, and thanks for listening. And the links are at the end of the talk if you have any questions. Let me see if we got anything on Wattpad.
You do. You got a few questions. Hey, this is Corwin. Thank you so much.
Hey, Corwin.
Thank you, Aaron. What an awesome talk this was. Actually, if you don't have a camera, I can get away with not having one too.
I'll turn the camera on.
Okay. All right. I'll turn mine back on. Here I come.
Yeah.
Hi. Yeah, so there are a few questions, but first let me say thank you for a really captivating talk. I think a lot of people will be empowered from this to try to do more with less, especially locally. And coming to some of the questions we've heard in other talks, people concerned about the data center footprint, environmentally concerned about the footprint of LLM inside data centers. So just thinking about how we can put infrastructure we have at home to use and get more done with less.
Yeah, the data center impact's interesting because there was a study a while ago. Someone said every time you do a Gemini query, it's like boiling a cup of water.
Yeah, I've heard that one too. So do you want to, I don't know how much direction you want. I'd be very happy to read out the questions for you.
Yeah, that would be great. I'm having trouble getting to that tab.
Okay, I'm there. So I'll put it into our chat too, so you can follow along if you'd like. But just the first question was, why is the David Bowie question a good one to start with? Does it have interesting failure conditions, or what made you choose that?
First off, huge fan of David Bowie. That's not how it always starts.
Good answer.
But who isn't really? But I came down to it. It really taught me a few things about how the models work in terms of things like how many kids he had, because DeepSeek, which is a very popular Chinese model that a lot of people are using now, misidentifies him as having 3 daughters, and he has like one son and one, I think 2 sons and a daughter, or something like that. And so there's differences on that, and it just goes over. There's a whole lot of stuff because his story spans like 60 years, so it gives a good feedback. And that's the real main reason I asked that question, because I just needed one that. Sea monkeys I just picked because it was obscure. And just always have it right. I used to have it write hello world in 4th because I thought it was an interesting one as well. So it's just, picking random ones like that. One question to ask, a lot of models is, what is the closest star to the Earth? Because most of them will say Alpha Centauri or Proxima Centauri and not the sun. And I have a whole nother talk where I just argue with the LLM trying to say, hey, the sun is a star, and it just wouldn't accept it. So. What?
So
okay.
I
can.
You're there.
Yeah.
So what specific tasks do you like to use your local AI for?
I like to load a lot of my code into and actually have it do analysis of it. I was actually going through some code I have for some pen testing, and I was having it modified to update it for the newer version, because I hate to say this, but it was written for Python 2, and I needed to update it for Python 3. And the 2 to 3 tool did not do all of it, but the actual tool is able to do the refactoring. It's part of my laziness, but I use that for anything I don't want to hit the web, and that's a lot of stuff. When you start thinking about if you're doing cybersecurity researching and you have your white papers and stuff like that and stuff in there. So I've got a lot of that loaded into RAG and one model on my open LLMs, on my open web UI system.
Neat. Have you used any small domain specific LLMs? What kind of tasks if so, what kind of tasks that they specialize in, and how?
I have not, to be honest, but there are some out there, like once again for cybersecurity and stuff like that, that I really need to dig into. That's on my to-do list. I've got a couple weeks off at the end of the year, and that's a big part of my plan for that.
Are the various models updated pretty regularly? Can you add your own data to the pre-built models?
Yes, you can. The models are updated pretty reasonably. You can add data to a model in a couple different ways. You can do something called fine-tuning, which requires a really nice GPU and a lot of CPU time. Probably not going to do that. You can do retrieval augmentation generation, which is you load your data on top of the system and puts inside a database, and it can actually scan that and stuff. I have another talk where I go through and I start asking questions about, I load the talk into the engine, and then I ask questions against that.
Oh, cool.
If I would have had a little more time, I would have done that. But it comes down to how many, that's RAG. RAG is pretty easy to do through Open Web UI or LM Studio. It's a great way. You just like point it to a folder, and it just sucks all that data into it, and it'll hit that data first. If you have like help desk and stuff. And the other options, there's vector databases, which is like if you use PostgreSQL, it has a PG vector. It can do a lot of that stuff. I've not dug into that yet, but that is also on that to-do list. I've got a lot of stuff planned for the end of the year. Cool.
So what are your experience with RAGs? I don't even know what that means. Do you know what that means?
Sorry, sorry, what was the question again?
What is your experience with RAGs or RAGs?
Oh. RAGs is great. That's retrieval augmentations generation. That loads your data first and it hits yours, and it'll actually cite it and stuff. There's a guy who wrote a RAG in 100 lines of Python, and it's an impressive piece of software. I think if you hit one of my site, I've got a private AI talk where I actually refer to that. But retrieval augmentation, it's easy, it's fast, it puts your data into the system. Yeah, start with that, then iterate on top of that. That's one of the great things about AI, especially private AIs. You can do whatever you want to with it and build up with it as you get more experience.
What any thoughts on running things on AWS, DigitalOcean, and so on?
AWS is not bad. The DigitalOcean, they have some of their GPUs. I still don't like having the data leave my house, to be honest. or at work, because I tend to do some stuff that I don't want even hitting that situation. But they have pretty good stuff. Another one to consider is Oracle Cloud. Oracle has their AI infrastructure that's really well done. But I mean, once again, then you start looking at potential. It's saying your data is private, but I don't necessarily trust it. But they do have good stuff. Both DigitalOcean, AWS, Oracle Cloud has the free service, which isn't too bad, usually a certain number of stuff. And Google's also has it. But I still tend to keep more stuff on local PCs because I just paranoid that way.
Gotcha. What has your experience been using AI? Do you want to get into that, using AI for cybersecurity? You might have already touched on this.
Really, for cybersecurity, what I've had it do is I've dumped logs to it and have it do correlation. Keep in mind, the size of that llama file we were using for figuring out David Bowie, writing the hello world and all that stuff is like 6 gig. How does it get the entire world in 6 gig? I still haven't figured that out in terms of quantization. So I'm really interested in seeing the ability to take like all the stuff out of my all my logs, dump it all in there, and actually be able to do intelligent queries against that. Microsoft has a project called Security Copilot, which is trying to do that in the cloud. But I want to work on something to do that more locally and be able to actually drive this stuff over that. That's one also on the long-term goals. So we got any other questions or?
Those are the questions that I see. I want to just read out a couple of comments that I saw in IRC, though. Jay Rutabaga says it went very well from an audience perspective, and G Gundam says respect your commitment to privacy. And then somebody's telling us we might have skipped a question, so I'm just gonna run back to my list. Updated regularly, experience. I just didn't type in the answer. There's a couple more questions coming in.
Okay.
So, is there a disparity where you go to paid models because they are better, and what problems, what would drive you toward that?
That's a good question. Paid models, I don't mind them. I think they're good, but I don't think they're actually economically sustainable under their current system. Because right now, if you're paying $20 a month for Copilot and that goes to $200, I'm not going to be as likely to use it, if you know what I mean. But it does do some things in a way that I did not expect. For example, Grothe was refactoring some of my code, and in the comments, it dropped an F-bomb, which I did not see coming. But the other code before that I had gotten off GitHub had F-bombs in it, so it was just emulating the style. But would that be something I'd want to turn into a pull request? I don't know. But there's a lot of money going into these AIs and stuff, but in terms of the ability to get a decent one like the Llama 3.2 and load your data into it, you can be pretty competitive. You're not going to get all the benefits, but you have more control over it. So it's a this and that. It's a balancing act.
Okay, and I think I see a couple more questions coming in. What is the largest parameter size for local models that you've been able to successfully run locally? And do you run into issues with limited context window size? The top paid models will tend to have a larger ceiling.
Yes. By default, the context size is, I think, 1024, but I've upped it to 8192 on this box, the Pangolin, because it seems to be some reason it's just a very working quite well. But the largest ones I've loaded have been in the have not been that huge. I've loaded this I can't remember the last biggest one I've done. That's the reason why I'm planning on breaking down and buying a Ryzen AI. Actually, I'm going to buy an Ultra Intel i285H with 96 gig of RAM, and then I should be able to load a 70 billion parameter model in that. How fast will it run? It's going to run slow as dog, but it's going to be cool to be able to do it. It's a AI bragging rights thing, but I mostly stick with the smaller size models and the ones that are more quantized because it just tends to work better for me. So it varies on your hardware.
We've still got over 10 minutes before we're cutting away, but I'm just anticipating that we're going to be going strong at the 10-minute mark. So I'm just letting you know we can go as long as we like here. At a certain point, I may have to jump away and check in with the next speaker, but we'll post the entirety of this, even if we aren't able to stay with it in all live.
Okay.
And we've got 10 minutes where we're still gonna stay live. So next question coming in, I see, are there free as in freedom, free as in FSF, issues with the data.
Yes. Where is the data coming from is a huge question with AI. It's astonishing. You can ask questions to models that you don't know where it's coming from. That is going to be one of the big issues long term. There are people who are working on trying to figure out that stuff, but it's I mean, if you look at God, I can't remember who it was. Somebody was actually out torrenting books just to be able to build into their AI system. I think it might have been Meta. So there's a lot of that going on. The open sourceness of the stuff is going to be tough. There's some models like the Momolos guys have got their own license, but where they're getting their data from, I'm not sure on. So that's a huge question. That's a talk in itself. But yeah, but if you train it on your RAG and your data, and you know what it's coming, you know you have a license to that. But the other stuff is just more along the lines of a supplement if you're using a smaller model. But
the comment online, I see a couple of them. I'll read them out in order here. Really interesting stuff. Thank you for your talk. Given that large AI companies are openly stealing intellectual property and copyright and therefore eroding the authority of such laws and maybe obscuring the truth itself, can you see a future where IP and copyright flaw become untenable? I think
that's a great question. I'm not a lawyer. Let's start with that. But it is really getting complicated. It is getting to the point. I asked a question from, I played with Sora a little bit, and it generated someone, you can go like, oh, that's John Hamm, that's Christopher Walken. You start figuring out who the people they're modeling stuff after. There is an apocalypse, something going to happen. Right now, there is, this is once again my personal opinion, and I am not a lawyer and I do not have money, so don't sue me, there's going to, the current administration is very AI, pro AI, and there's a great deal of lobbying by those groups, and it's on both sides. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens to copyright in the next 5-10 years. I just don't know how it keeps up without there being some adjustments and stuff.
Okay, and then another comment I saw, file size is not going to be a bottleneck. RAM is. You'll need 16 gigabytes of RAM to run the smallest local models and 512 gigabytes of RAM to run the larger ones. You'll need a GPU with that much memory if you want it to run quickly.
Yeah. Oh, no. It also depends on how your memory is laid out. Like example being the Ultra i285H I plan to buy. That has 96 gig of memory. It's unified between the GPU and the CPU share it, but they go over the same bus. So the overall bandwidth of it tends to be a bit less, but you're able to load more of it into memory, so it's able to do some additional stuff with it as opposed to coming off disk. It's all a balancing act. If you hit Ziskin's website, that guy's done some great work on it. I'm trying to figure out how big a model you can do, what you can do with it. And some of the stuff seems to be not obvious because, like example being that MacBook Air, for the 5 minutes I can run the model, it runs it faster than a lot of other things that should be able to run it faster, just because the way the ARM cores and the unified memory work on it. So it's a learning process. But if you want to, Network Chuck had a great article, a great video talking about building his own system with a couple really powerful NVIDIA cards and stuff like that in it, and just actually setting up on his system as a node and using a web UI on it. So there's a lot of stuff there, but it is a process of learning how big your data is, which models you want to use, how much information you need, but it's part of the learning. And you can run models even as on Raspberry Pi 5s if you want to. They'll run slow, don't get me wrong, but they're possible.
Okay, and I think there's other questions coming in too, so I'll just vamp for another second. We've got about 5 minutes before we'll be cutting over, but I just want to say, in case we get squoze for time here, how much I appreciate your talk. This is another one that I'm going to have to study after the conference.
We greatly appreciate, all of us appreciate you guys putting on the conference. It's a great conference. It's well done.
It's an honor to be on the stage with you, with the brains of the project, which is you.
So what else we got question-wise?
Okay, so just scanning it here. Have you used local models capable of tool calling?
I I'm scared of agentic. I'm going to be a slow adopter of that. I want to do it, but I just don't have the intestinal fortitude right now to do it. I've had it give me the commands, but I still run the commands by hand. I'm looking into it, and it's on, once again, it's on that list, but that's a big step for me. So.
Awesome. All right. Well, maybe it's let me just scroll through because we might have missed one question. Oh, I see. Here was the piggyback question. Now I see the question that I missed. So this was piggybacking on the question about model updates and adding data. And will models reach out to the web if they need more info, or have you worked with any models that work that way?
No, I have not seen any models that do that. There was like a group working on something like a package updater that would do different diffs on it, but it's so models change so much. Even if you make minor changes and fine tuning, it's hard to just update them in place. So I haven't seen one, but that doesn't mean they're not out there. I'm curious topic though.
Awesome. Well, it's probably pretty good timing. Let me just scroll and make sure yep, no, there. And of course, before I can say that, there's one more question. So let's go ahead and have at it. I want to make sure while we're still live, though, I give you a chance to offer any closing thoughts. So what scares you most about the agentic tools? How would you think about putting a sandbox around that if you did adopt an agentic workflow?
That is a great question. In terms of that, I would just control what it's able to talk to, what machines. I would actually have it be air gapped. I work for a defense contractor, and we spend a lot of time dealing with air gap systems because that's just kind of the way it works out for us. So agentic, it's just going to take a while to get trust. I want to see more stuff happening. Humans screw up stuff enough. The last thing we need is to multiply that by 1,000. So in terms of that, I would be restricting what it can do. If you look at the capabilities, if I created a user and I gave it permissions, I would have it locked down through sudo what it's able to do, what the account's able to do. I would do those kind of things, but it's happening. It's just I'm going to be one of the laggards on that one.
So air gap, jail, extremely locked down environments. Like we're talking about separate physicals, not Docker, right?
Yeah,
makes sense.
Hopefully,
right. Fair. So tool calling can be read-only, such as giving models the ability to search the web before answering your question, write access, execute access. I'm interested to know if local models are any good at that kind of thing.
Yes, local models can do a lot of that stuff. It's their capabilities. If you load LM Studio, you can do a lot of wonderful stuff with that, or with Open Web UI with Olama. It's a lot of capabilities. It's amazing. Open Web UI is actually what a lot of companies are using now to put their data behind that, their curated data and stuff like that. So it works well.
Confirm that from my own professional experience.
Excellent.
Okay, well, our timing should be just perfect. If you want to give us like a 30-second, 45-second wrap up, Aaron, let me squeeze in mine. Thank you again so much for preparing this talk and for entertaining all of our questions.
Let me just thank you guys for the conference again. This is a great one. I've enjoyed a lot of it. I've only hit a couple of the talks so far, but I'm looking forward to hitting the ones after this and tomorrow. But the AI stuff is coming. Get on board. Definitely recommend, if you want to just try it out, get a little taste of it. What my minimal viable product with just Llama file and GPTel will get you to the point where you start figuring out GPTel is an amazing thing. It just gets out of your way, but it works so well with Emacs design because it doesn't take your hands off the keyboard. It's just another buffer, and you just put information in there. It's quite wonderful. It's a wonderful time. Let's put it that way. That's all I got.
Thank you so much for once again, and we're just cut away, so I'll stop the recording, and you're on your own recognizance.
Okay. Well, I'm going to punch out. If anybody has any questions or anything, my email address is ajgrothe@yahoo.com or at Gmail. And thank you all for attending, and thanks again for the conference.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the room then. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks. Bye.